Hello and welcome. We're your guides through the complexities of today's world.
It's great to be with you. We're here every day looking at the big issues.
And today, like every Monday, we're focusing on current world events, geopolitics, and definitely the economy.
That's right. And today we've got a really interesting stack of material all focused on the UK political scene, specifically predictions for the next general election.
Yeah, it looks like things are, well, pretty chaotic over there. We're trying to get a handle on whether the Reform Party could actually win the most seats.
Exactly. We want to look at the data, the expert takes, and really understand why this potential shift might be happening. It's about the underlying forces.
So this should give you a good shortcut to understanding what's really driving things politically and economically in the UK right now. The whole system seems under huge pressure.
Definitely. And the place you have to start, according to pretty much all the analysis, is the betting markets. They kind of reflect the collective wisdom, or at least perception.
Okay, so what are the odds?
Well, it's pretty stunning, actually. The markets are giving Reform almost exactly a 50% chance of getting the most seats. 50%.
Wow. Okay. And Labor?
Labor's hovering around, say, 32%. And the Conservatives, who've dominated for so long, they're way down, about 12%.
12%. That 50% for Reform isn't just high. It feels like it signals a real break in that traditional two-party dominance the UK has had for, well, forever.
It really does. It's uncharted territory. But here's the thing. The complication. Winning the most seats doesn't automatically mean you form the government.
Ah, right. Because the UK system is fragmenting. Both Labour and the Conservatives are just really unpopular.
Exactly. That unpopularity leads to fragmentation, more parties getting votes, and that makes things very, very complicated.
And that complexity points towards a hung parliament, doesn't it, where no single party actually gets a majority of seats overall.
Precisely. The betting markets actually put the chance of a hung parliament at 52%, so slightly more likely than not.
Okay, explain the coalition conundrum then. If Reform gets the most seats, but not a majority, what happens?
Well, because the UK uses that first-past-the-post system,
Hmm.
which is brutal on divided parties, you can see an anti-reform coalition forming after the election.
So parties teaming up specifically to block Reform, like who?
You could potentially see Labour, the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, maybe even the Scottish National Party, the SNP, if their combined seats beat Reform's total.
Reform could win the most seats but still be locked out of power.
Exactly. And then the Conservatives, even with their terrible polling, suddenly become kingmakers. Sort of. Do they prop up Reform to keep Labour out? Or do they sit back? It's incredibly messy.
Okay, so the raw numbers paint a picture of real uncertainty, lots of possibilities, but you mentioned the analysis suggests the markets might be missing something.
Yes, this is where it gets really interesting. The expert analysis we're looking at argues Reform's actual chances might be quite a bit higher than 50%.
Higher. Why? What are the betting markets supposedly missing?
The economy, or more specifically, the impact of worsening wealth inequality. The argument is the markets are too, well, optimistic about how the UK economy will fare between now and the election in 2029.
Okay, so the core idea is living standards are set to keep falling, and that's inevitable.
That's the argument. Because the root cause, this rapidly growing wealth inequality,
Yeah.
isn't being addressed by any of the main political leaders. If you ignore that,
The majority of people just keep getting squeezed.
right, and that continued decline in living standards, that's what the analysis says fuels Reform.
How does that work exactly? Falling living standards hurt Labor but help Reform. What's the mechanism?
Well, it draws on history, really. When you have long periods of economic pain and insecurity, people start looking for radical change. They often gravitate towards strong-seeming leaders promising simple solutions.
And that aligns with the sort of vibe that Nigel Farage is projecting.
That's what the analysis suggests. It fits that pattern. People feeling left behind look for someone who sounds tough and promises to shake things up. Labor, trying to sound fiscally responsible and centrist.
Looks like more of the same failed approach.
Pretty much. So
Yeah.
the ongoing economic damage from unchecked inequality,
Wow.
it just chips away at Labor's support because they aren't offering that stark alternative economic vision. It's terrible news for Labor, but as the source puts it, just great for Reform.
Okay, let's pivot specifically to Labor then. The sources say they're polling badly, leader Keir Starmer polling really badly, and they're facing immediate problems.
Yeah, two big hurdles coming up very soon. First, a really tough autumn budget in November. Labor's trying to project Fiscal credibility, which likely means,
Tax rises.
probably, but likely not popular ones like wealth taxes.
Mm.
More likely tax increases hitting the middle and working classes. That's going to hurt their popularity almost certainly.
Okay, that's the first hurdle. What's the second?
Then comes May, local elections. And the prediction there is that Labor will do really, really badly.
So a painful budget followed by terrible local election results.
The combination, the analysis predicts, will likely force a major rethink, maybe even a leadership change. The betting odds actually give Starmer only about a 16% chance of still being leader by the time the next general election rolls around.
16%. That's incredibly low. So if he goes, a new leader comes in, facing a crisis, they need a clear economic plan fast. What are their options?
The analysis lays out three broad strategic paths for a potential new Labor leader. Let's call them the winning path, the boring path, and the losing path.
Okay, let's hear them. What's choice number one, the winning path?
This involves embracing a really clear vision focused squarely on wealth taxes and tackling inequality. Why is this the winning path? Because it's an issue where labor can actually be seen as strong and different, offering a genuine alternative to reform's narrative. It gives people a reason to vote for labor, not just against others.
Makes sense. What's choice two, the boring path?
This is basically doubling down on the current Mr. Sensible strategy,
Yeah.
trying to promise economic growth, grow, 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 without fundamentally changing the tax system or addressing inequality head-on.
And the verdict on that?
The analysis calls it very unoriginal and essentially a death warrant. It's seen as uninspiring, more of the same, and it fails to counter the forces driving people towards reform.
Right. And the final option, choice three, the losing path.
This is labor deciding to go aggressively anti-immigration, trying to beat reform at their own game, essentially.
Why is that considered a losing strategy?
Because it shifts the entire debate onto the very issue where reform is strongest and most comfortable. It makes immigration the central theme. Labor playing on reform's home turf, basically signing labor's own death warrant, according to the source material. It validates reform's core message.
Okay, so Labor's facing some stark choices. Meanwhile, what about the Conservatives? They're polling at 12%. It sounds like an existential crisis for them.
It really is. Their traditional political space is being aggressively usurped by reform, as one source puts it. That tiny 12% chance the betting markets give them. It seems to rely on them doing something. Well, drastic.
Like what? Something crazy.
Pretty much. Or at least wild and erratic behavior as the election gets closer. This could mean a leadership change, too. The analysis suggests the current senior figure, Kemi Badenoch, might not even last through next year. Maybe someone like Robert Jenrick emerges.
So instability is their strategy.
When you're losing badly, unpredictability can seem like your only option. They'll likely try to go very hard on immigration, hope reform makes some kind of mistake, and try to scoop up disillusioned voters. But if reform stays disciplined, expect the Tories to get, well, quite desperate.
Got it. There's another wild card too, isn't there? The Green Party.
Yes, a really interesting dynamic there. With Labor moving more to the center, maybe even center-right on some economic issues, the Greens are trying to capture that vacated left-wing space.
Under their new leader, Zach Polanski.
That's right. He's explicitly pushing policies focused on inequality and wealth taxes, the very things the analysis suggests Labor should be doing. They're aiming high, talking about maybe 30 or 40 seats.
Which would be huge for them. They've only ever won a handful before.
Exactly. But here's their strategic dilemma. It's fascinating. They need to push these ideas, hoping Labor eventually adopts them. It's a bit like how Farage pushed the Conservatives towards Brexit,
Right, influencing the bigger party's platform.
But the paradox is, if Labor does adopt those green policies on wealth tax and inequality, which would be a massive policy win for the Greens' agenda, it would probably crush the Green Party electorally.
Because Labor would steal their thunder, take their votes.
Precisely. So they have to champion these policies, knowing that success in shaping the debate might actually lead to their own party's marginalization if Labor pivots effectively.
Wow. Okay, so you have all these parties with complex strategies, dilemmas, potential leadership changes. What's the unifying thread here? What does it all boil down to for the election outcome?
One word, really: division. Especially division among the anti-reform forces.
Because of the first past-the-post voting system?
Exactly. FPTP ruthlessly punishes parties that split the vote on one side of the political spectrum. The analysis is stark here. Reform could potentially win an overall majority in Parliament, with the smallest share of the popular vote ever recorded in UK history.
Just because the opposition is fragmented.
Yes. If Labor, the Lib Dems, the Greens, are all fighting each other for similar voters, they could hand reform victory after victory in individual constituencies, even if more people overall voted against reform.
So what's the counter? How could that outcome be avoided, according to this analysis?
Only through what the source calls an aggressive and relentless pursuit of unity and common ground between the center and the left. They have to find ways to cooperate, perhaps tacitly or even formally.
Focus specifically on what?
Explicitly on the economy, on inequality, on the unfairness of the tax system. They need to find the economic issues that unite them and hammer that message home, putting aside other differences. If they stay divided, focusing on what separates them.
Reform wins.
That's the prediction. Division equals a reform victory. Unity on economic ground is the only potential block.
Okay, this leads to the final and maybe most concerning part of the analysis, the escalation risk. What happens if reform does win, but then fails to fix the economy?
Well, the analysis argues they will fail to fix the deep economic problems if they, like previous governments, ignore the fundamental issue of wealth inequality. And when your core economic policies aren't working and you're losing popularity.
You need someone else to blame, the scapegoat cycle.
Exactly. It's a predictable political pattern. The focus starts on, say, illegal immigration. When targeting that group doesn't solve the cost of living crisis, the pressure builds to look at legal migration.
And if that doesn't work either?
Then the rhetoric can shift towards recent migrants, even those who are citizens, or other vulnerable groups. The analysis points to extreme examples elsewhere, like a suggestion on U.S. Fox News about dealing with homeless people, just to illustrate how far scapegoating can go when leaders are failing economically and politically desperate.
It's a warning about a potential downward spiral if the core economic problems aren't addressed.
Yes, the conclusion is pretty stark. Unless a powerful, unifying political narrative emerges that focuses squarely on inequality and economic fairness, the only real political space left for a failing government will be to keep moving further and further right, finding new groups to blame.
So it really sounds like the entire stability of the UK political system, according to this analysis, hinges on this one question. Can the divided center and left groups put aside their differences and unite around that economic common ground?
That really is the central takeaway. Can they achieve that aggressive and relentless pursuit of unity? Or will their continued division pave the way not just for a reform victory, but for the potential escalations that would follow if reform then fails to deliver economically? That seems to be the key question for the coming years.
A truly sobering but important analysis to understand the forces shaping the UK. Thank you for walking us through all of that today, covering the world events, geopolitics, and the economy.
Hopefully it gives you, our listeners, a clearer picture of just how complex and, frankly, high stakes the situation is.
Absolutely. And remember, if you want to stay up to date with our analysis every day, please do subscribe to the channel. Join us again tomorrow when we shift gears completely.
That's right. Tomorrow we'll be looking into psychology, health, and personal development.
We'll see you then.